Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Lefty.
Hey, Lefty, what you say?
Welcome to the first edition of the Lucky Lefty podcast. I am Shaun Davis. You can follow me at SD2Mikes on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, besides me is the original Lucky Lefty. We actually are both lefties, but this is the original Lucky Lefty. Former Notre Dame quarterback Malik Zaire. My brother, how you feeling today?
Oh, man, it's always good when two lefties get on the podcast, I'll tell you that.
No doubt. It's always great being left-handed, whether you're on the football field or on the court, because people aren't used to viewing you or viewing someone that way.
Yeah, you always got that advantage, and then on top of that, we just look better in a uniform. I think it's something about left-handers when we got the ball in our hands, when we're doing our thing. It's just the entertainment value goes out the roof.
So let's get to it. Let's talk about Notre Dame 2021 season. I guess disappointment for most people when you look back at how the season ended. Truncated season. They had an all ACC schedule. They didn't face off against USC, Navy, and some of the traditional opponents that are on the schedule that we'll see back on the schedule this year. I believe this season they face currently ranked the 8th, the 10th, the 12th, and the 15th ranked teams are on the schedule this year. So it's definitely a tougher schedule than they faced last year. But going back to that college football playoff matchup against Alabama, it wasn't so much about the L. And I want to get, for me, it wasn't so much about the L. It was more about how the L came about in that game.
Yeah, for me, I mean, like you said, it's not so much about us losing the game, and it's how we do it. And, you know, similar to 2012 when we played them last time in the championship, it didn't feel like we had a lot of confidence that we were going to win when that second half came on. And it just felt like the gap between the two teams was just so far. You know, when you're reading through the tweets during halftime, people were saying we shouldn't even have been allowed to be in the playoffs and all type of crazy hate tweets. But, you know, I look at it a lot like how the girls' basketball team was when we kept losing to UConn every year. It took 2 game-winning shots by a current superstar right now in the WNBA to get us over that hump. And it seems to me that we need that same type of superstar clutchness at a certain position to really get us over that same hump.
So what position is that? Let's talk about that. What's the position, you know, because I want to – this is going to segue to something you said over the summer that caused a lot of fans, Notre Dame fans, to be upset with you. But what's the one position where Notre Dame needs to take that next step, man, to close the gap on not only Alabama but the likes of Clemson?
It's really that quarterback position. I mean, if you think about it, even if you're judging our last season when we played Clemson, the difference was the quarterback. You know, we played Clemson at Notre Dame, but we played the Clemson Tigers with Trevor Lawrence, and we saw how much of a difference that made. So it really comes down to that superstar quarterback. And if you're looking at just the winners of the college football championship, a lot of those are superstar quarterbacks, you know, guys that are starting in the league right now. So it just shows that's what it takes at that level in the college football playoffs to win it. And the teams that have been consistent with those quarterbacks are the teams that are consistently in there.
Now the question is, what's good enough, right? Brian Kelly, head coach, I think he's done a wonderful job. The debacle that was the 2016 season, he came back from that, reestablished himself, changed some things, changed the way he coached, changed the way he recruited. Seems like he surrounded himself with better recruiters on his staff because they've done a fantastic job in the last 2 cycles, in my opinion. But moving forward, how does he get this team from being efficient and a constant 10-win team to taking the next step and saying we're contenders every year? Like, we step on the field with Alabama and Clemson, we feel like we're going to win. We don't have to walk on the field and feel like we have to be perfect to stay in the game. That's the way you feel now, right?
And that's the thing, is just like, you know, the recruiting and the efficiency of what Coach Kelly's been able to do has been great. You know, we've been spoiled as a fan base to get those 9-10 win seasons, always be in contention for the playoffs and having great recruiting classes. But if you think about it, the biggest gap has always been, at this point, the quarterback position, only because we've done everything else. We've
Yeah.
gotten the top 5 recruiting classes. We've beaten the people we needed to get into the playoffs consistently. We've made appearances in those playoffs consistently. So it's a glaring issue for us because I know Coach Kelly wants to get that chip, but you got to turn over that offense to the quarterback, and he's got to be a superstar. I mean, it's hard when you're facing Trevor Lawrence and you're facing Justin Fields and you're playing Mac Jones and you're playing Trevor Lawrence again in the playoffs. So it's not like we've been losing to any cupcake teams when it came down to it. But our seasons have been built off of those one game make or break your season anyway, whether it be Georgia from 2 years ago, the Miami game that got us a good spot in the playoffs. But, this year is no different. We got the right teams on the schedule to make it, the right teams to be impressive. But, I think at this point, it's almost unimpressive for us to get those 9-10 wins. It's about what that last couple of games look like.
So bring clarity to what we talked about, and we teased it a little bit. Over the season, we were having a conversation on Twitter. Myself, you, a couple other people from Notre Dame publications, and we were talking about Tyler Buckner, who is the freshman quarterback that battled for the starting position. Ultimately, Jack Cohn will be the starter for Notre Dame at that quarterback position. And your question was, man, Tyler Buckner, from looking at his film, looks like every other quarterback we've recruited. Like, when are we going to get that special guy? Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. That seems like the point you were trying to make. You weren't being disparaging of the young man. You were just saying his film looks very similar to what we've already had. And you just pointed out that position is where we need to take the next step to close the gap.
Yeah, I think we just should be unapologetic about it, man. And we look on those recruiting boards and see who's coming out, who's the 5-star, who's that DJ Udongagale, that's the number 1 guy going into college, and we just need to just shoot for him. I think, our strategy has been finding that diamond in the rough at quarterback and getting the guy to come out of nowhere to lead Notre Dame to the playoffs. I think that's just more of a fantasy at this point, and I think we took some right steps. Actually, it was about the Steve Angeli kid that we just got, not Tyler Buckner. I actually think Tyler Buckner is the difference maker. It's just he looks different at the position, something that we haven't had since, I was around. And I think it's just important that if we're invested in our quarterbacks like we should be to get over that hump, we should look at how the other teams have done it. I mean, Clemson and what they've done with DJ, and even with having a number 1 pick in Trevor, they were still able to find DJ enough time to prepare even as a true freshman. And he gave us 42 points at home, so
and that's holding him to 28 yards on the ground. That's the running game. So he didn't have anything to supplement what he was doing.
And that's a true freshman. And it shows what Dabo is doing with those guys in recruiting. And he's being honest. He's like, hey, you come here, you can play. You see what we're doing. And he's been growing those guys. And now DJ's a dang near Heisman contender going into his sophomore season. So I think that's something similar that maybe we should invest in and building a guy that can be ingrained in the system like Ian was for a couple years. But I think Tyler has enough of everything that you want to really, be explosive. I think that position needs to be more explosive and more playmaking. I think Ian did a good job, but I mean, if you look at Ian's numbers, it didn't supplement the magnitude of how good he was really was for that team. And getting 30 plus wins isn't easy to do at Notre Dame. Man,
you can say that again. It's impossible to win that many games and not be considered a success.
That's right.
I mean, we can pick at the film. We can talk about him holding on to the ball, not taking the big shots in big games to get chunk yards and trying to dink and dunk down the field. But at the end of the day, the kid was a winner. The comeback, that drive to tie things up against Clemson and eventually to win in double overtime just cemented, who he was at the University of Notre Dame. And he's always going to be remembered as a winner. And he's going to be beloved by the fan base.
Yeah, he's especially loved by the fan base. I think Ian is probably the perfect mold/fit for what a Notre Dame envisions their quarterback to kind of be. Not necessarily the most talented person on offense, but he's the one that they look to get it done. I think that mold is what Notre Dame's really been built off of this whole time from the quarterback position. And at this point in age, it might have to be updated a little bit to be more of an aggressive role because, even Ian's situation, it went from, don't lose the game when he first started to, you got to win us games. And he did that against Clemson in his senior year. And he was impressive. But, when we was playing those Clemson Tigers, it was a little bit different of an outing.
Yo, let me set this up for you. Have a little fun with you, right? If Malik Zaire, I want you to see yourself out in LA. Nice one of the nice little spots, and in walks Deshaun Watson, and you guys get a chance to share pleasantries and greet one another. And you start off the sentence by saying, if I had played in that game, fill in the blanks.
Yeah, careers would be different, man. Careers would be different. I mean, I think I really wanted that matchup with Deshaun week 4, that 2015 season. I mean, I was really, really looking forward to that game. And, that game right there changed a lot in history for both, I think both programs. They won that game and ended up going and playing against Alabama in their first time in a national championship. But, an extra point difference, if I played a difference, that could be us because we, at that same point in the season, if we win that game, we're playing Stanford for that 2 points that we lost to. We might win that one. We could be the team playing Alabama in that first championship, and it'll probably change a lot, for the course of how Clemson has been since then, and what Deshaun's been able to do for that organization and that program from that first year and on. I mean, it's history in the making right there, and you can't take away what he's been able to accomplish from there. But I know that week 4 game would be it's a point in history for sure in college football.
Yo, and I think kudos needs to go out to that team for what they were able to accomplish. I mean, to lose your quarterback, to lose your running back, and still, have a guy switch from wide receiver and become the number 1 running back and go into South Carolina and battle that team, like you said, to the brink of being able to overcome them and come back. That storm had to be crazy. Because it looked
it was raining sideways and it was muddy, and I mean it was everything that you couldn't make it up for a movie. Let's put it like that. Like the real life was way better than what you could put in for a movie just from the scenery. I mean, the fans, it was like a regular night game for the fans. They didn't act like they minded the rain. I mean, just the intensity and just everything that went into it. And I wasn't even playing, but the emotions from the game was so high. Both teams were at that point trending upwards, and the sky was the limit for both of us. And they came out with the victory, but it was one of those Notre Dame games that why people love Notre Dame so much, because we always gonna make it look good to the end for sure.
All right, so let's get into this season, and I want to talk about, as I said before, the schedule is a lot more daunting than it was last year when Notre Dame played a strictly ACC schedule. Based upon the current rankings right now, Notre Dame has the number 8th, 10th, 12th, and 15th team on the schedule. They start off down in Tallahassee on Sunday night prime time against the Florida State Seminoles, a Seminole program that is trying to recover. Offensively, they put up some points the last time they came to South Bend and surprised Notre Dame. Notre Dame was able to pull away in the second half. But they're very thin on the offensive line. Former Irish offensive lineman Dylan Gibbons starts on the inside for them. The return of McKenzie to quarterback is a great story. But at this point, reports out of Tallahassee is that his knee might not be holding up. And we don't know how much Mackenzie Milton is even going to play against Notre Dame. Right. So Travis might end up starting at the quarterback position in this matchup. And he was successful with some RPOs against Notre Dame the last time he faced them. So how do you see this first game playing out? and then we'll get into the rest of the schedule.
Well, the first game for us, it always is something that's frustrating to watch because you would feel like we leave so much more on the field in that first game, where it'd be a 7-10 game. We're like at halftime, we probably missed a couple, and just getting off to a slow start. So hopefully, with Tommy being able to get full reign of that offense, calling it this year, we can have better starts. I really like the way we started in Clemson in the playoffs last year, where he was calling the full game, and I know he'll have a good opening coming out for this team, especially from Florida State. And truthfully, I mean, I think Marcus Freeman and what he's been able to do to rally those guys around him, especially filling in for the absence of Coach Lee. What a great pick by Coach Kelly to get him in there, and especially like the modern day recruiter. I mean, he's the hottest ticket on the defensive market right now. For us to get him and how he's impacted recruiting, I think the defensive, which has been the strong point for us in these consistent years of 10-win seasons, is gonna show out, especially in this first game. Kyle Hamilton will lead that charge. So it's really not up to us. I think the defense will put us in good standing in the first game. I think it'll be trying to figure out our offensive identity early on and see who our playmakers are going to be outside of Kyron. I think Kyron, obviously, we're going to lean on him heavily, but we got some receivers that can make us showing, that can take the top off the defense, that I think we'll have to see if we can get that off to kind of define that run play action. I think that will be this year.
It's so amazing that you brought up Tommy Rees. And I think both of these are coordinators, Tommy Rees and also Marcus Freeman, will have a chance to really highlight what their plan for their units will be going into this season. I'm interested in seeing if Tommy Rees can take this offense from being an efficient offense to an explosive offense. You talked about the weapons that are there on the outside for Jack Cohn. People forget Jack Cohn led Wisconsin to a Big Ten championship berth, and then came back in 2019 before he surrendered the job to Graham Mertz, who's the starter now. So, when they go into Soldier Field to face the Badgers in a couple of weeks, that'll be the Jack Cohn revenge game, and we'll have that extra chip on our shoulder when we face the Badgers. But it's amazing when I look at this game. I really want to see 2 or 3 big plays. One of the guys I'm looking forward to seeing is Kevin Austin coming back from injury. Reports out of camp is that he has been amazing and has caught every ball, every 50-50 ball against every DB. He's gone against double coverages and made plays. We already know what Michael Mayer is going to give us.
Yeah.
Like he was a stud all season. The way they used him in that championship game against Clemson, especially early on for the first 3 drives, we just couldn't get the touchdowns. But we were moving the ball at will. And then, like you said, Kyron Williams is going to be the battering ram. And hopefully Chris Tyree can get some more touches and show some of the explosion that we expected when he came out of Virginia and came to Notre Dame. I want to see if all these tools can come together. You're talking about Braden Lindsey, who can take the top off the defense, Lawrence Keys in the slot, and then Avery Davis is just Mr. Consistent. It's another weapon. So I want to see if this Notre Dame defense can get up to about 38, 39 points per game, maybe even touch 40. Especially
I think, we got 100%. We got the offensive talent for it. I mean, Michael Mayer, I think Tommy Rees is right. One of the best, if not the best tight end to come through. And we've had a lot of great tight ends. Even Tommy Tremble was great. Michael Mayer, I think, should be the focus of the offense this year, considering the mismatch he provides and how his run blocking and also pass catching can complement the run game where Kyron isn't running against 9-man boxes. Kevin Austin, I've also heard a lot about, and guys were excited about him early. It was just him coming along slower than the usual, but I think he's one of the X factors outside of Michael Mayer being a targeted guy that I don't think other teams know about as much as the guys on campus know about him. So he'll make a splash somewhere in that offense. I know Tommy's going to do a good job of getting guys to football. I think one of the things that even during Tommy's time, and now we know this from offenses, is that we've always been loaded with many special guys, but you wouldn't know until they probably got to the NFL, So, or you wouldn't see how special they are until they got to the NFL. I think a lot about, the Equinemius, Miles Boykin, and Chase Claypool those guys' careers, yeah, they were greater later, but they were
Yeah.
good coming in, and we didn't really get to see them until the end. But I think Tommy being able to be creative in the things he does and the knowledge he has on offense, well, you'll see a lot more guys, and we'll be like, wow, we really do got some Alabama type, Clemson type players that can be impactful in each and every game. So hopefully he'll open that up and give Jack the ability to be the game manager I think that he will be, but I think he's good at what he does. You know, it's not easy taking a team to the Big Ten championship, but we do know Big Ten quarterbacks are great at sustaining offenses throughout games. So mix that with the talent we got. I think Tommy has a lot at his fingertips to be able to put up more than the average of 21 points we usually have a game.
The biggest question mark, of course, has to be along the offensive line. They lost a lot to the NFL, and we come back, and all of a sudden, in the middle of camp, we hear about this uber talented, huge, monstrous freshman named Blake Fisher that is just like catching everybody's eye. And we started hearing that he's going to start at left tackle. And it's like, man, you're going to start a freshman at left tackle? But that seems to be the case. And Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees and everybody else seems to think that he's ready to go. And they predict that this kid is going to be special. But just talk about the offensive line after losing Liam Eichenberg and the rest of the crew that went on and graduated or went to the NFL. To have Patterson, who is the veteran and is one of the best centers in all of college football, to have him as the anchor of that offensive line, but then to have other parts around him that don't have a lot of game experience. What do you expect from that unit? Do you expect them to become more cohesive midway through the season, or do you think they'll be raring to go from game one?
I think we'll have a couple bumps, but when you have a center that special that we have, I mean, that's probably the most important part outside your left tackle, which is very talented with Fisher. I think being in the grateful position I was having Quentin Nelson and Ronnie and Mike McGlinchey and Nick Martin in front of me, they set a strong precedent from Coach Easton that's lasted, all the way to Liam Eichenberg. I remember I was there. He was a true freshman, and he was, big-eyed, head spinning with all the talent we had then, and he was able to continue that success and to be in the top pick like he was. So yeah. I think just the tradition of the linemen at Notre Dame with us having one of the best centers in the country and then us having one of the best left tackle prospects as a freshman, I think everything in between will figure itself out. That's probably the most mature group usually on the team for Notre Dame every year is our offensive line. Even if they are young and freshmen, they stick really close together. I think the culture has been strong there in that sense, and it's been a big engine to what we've been able to do in terms of being consistent to win 9 and 10 games. It's got to start up front with that offensive line, and with those guys being fresh and led by superstar center that we have, I'm not too worried about it, and then you got a veteran quarterback that can help handle the leaks and some of the things that he'll point out to those young guys. I think that up front crew will be all right.
What do you think a veteran like Jack Cohn is saying to his young left tackle the first time they go into the huddle down in Tallahassee on Sunday night? Like, does he just leave him alone and just let him play, or does he give him some affirmation and smack him on the helmet and say, hey, let's go?
Man, as a fifth-year guy, I mean, there's a lot of game experience clearly between a fifth-year guy and a first game starting left tackle. So there's probably going to be some trust to develop throughout the game. But, if he's starting as a left tackle at Notre Dame, I'm sure there's a certain amount of confidence that Jack is going into the game with. I think he feels he'll be able to handle at least what Florida State is bringing. I don't think Florida State has a number one defense in like a Chase Young or nothing. So it'll be a challenge in the beginning, but I think they'll do a lot in the run game starting out early on to kind of get his feet under him before they start letting him just take on one-on-one pass rushes. But like I said, Notre Dame's so talented, he'll be the third or fourth piece in the story along with all the other superstars we have in the run game with Kyron and Chris Tyree. And then you go out and with Kevin Austin and Michael Mayer and what Jack's going to be able to put together. There's a lot of storylines on that offense. So I think Fisher's going to be a big piece of it, but it's going to fail in comparison to all the other things going on, especially in that first game.
And it's amazing. You talk about that. You talk about the guys you played with when they were babes, Quentin Nelson, Mike McGlinchey, and they were still developing. I think one of the biggest challenges for young players on the offensive line is learning how to make the adjustment week to week and how teams are going to choose to attack Notre Dame. First week, Florida State, they don't have a lot of depth. They have talent, but you can wear them down. And can you stay consistent? Can you keep running the ball even if you're not getting the 4 to 5 yards you want in the first quarter? By the end of the second quarter, you'll start to reap the benefits of that if you continue to run the game, continue in the run game and not be frustrated. Then the next week, you're just more talented than Toledo. So you look to dominate them. You look to push them around, right? But then you come back and you have one of the best defensive coordinators in Jim Leonard in all of college football. And just like Notre Dame puts tight ends into the NFL, Wisconsin finds a way to put pass rushers into the NFL. So you know they're going to have not young, but they're going to have speedy end rushers that are going to attack the quarterback, go for tackles for losses, and get into the backfield. That's the game plan. The linebackers are going to shoot, come straight up the field. That's just a different way. So week to week, you're going to see something different from each and every team, each and every coordinator, and how quickly this Notre Dame offensive line adjusts and stay consistent. And what Notre Dame wants to do would definitely dictate how explosive they can be, not only in the run game, but the pass game.
Yeah, I think one thing that Notre Dame does well is they build their O-linemen to fit those different types of schemes, considering we're playing all over the country. You know, we're going ACC to Pac-12 to Big Ten. And the good thing is our linemen are always and usually built like Big Ten linemen. And those are usually the differences of what makes a team that's like Notre Dame that can go to all these different environments and handle different schemes, because the Big Ten lineman is sort of the mold that you want to have a consistent outing every time on offense. And so that's the biggest thing with Big Ten defenses as well, is that those D linemen are big and the linebackers are big. It's different in the USC linebacking core. I refer to when we played Northwestern. Northwestern's DNs and linebackers are almost the same size. I mean, they were big suckers in the middle. So that's the style that you get up there in the Big Ten. You got heavy run, you got double tight ends, so that we'll be able to accommodate for the size of what Wisconsin will bring with those pass rushers, because I know we'll have a little bit of size on us, but you know the difference in why I feel like we consistently churn out 9-10 win seasons, that on paper we're just more talented than the other team on paper throughout. And whether it be, I mean, as a collective, like Florida State is very talented skill-wise, but I know we have a more skilled offensive line. So that, like you said, wearing them down in that third or fourth quarter is going to be an advantage for us. Even when we talk about Wisconsin, we have better skilled players in Wisconsin. So that comes in when you talk about offensive coordinator, with Tommy Rees being a more modern and updated offensive coordinator. He's going to be creative enough to scheme our advantages against a lot of these teams that will be collectively more talented than. It just gets tricky when you talk about those Clemson, Alabama, Ohio States, where we're evenly and sometimes less talented than, to where we really got to get our coaching skills involved.
It's crazy you mentioned the Badgers and the skill sets that they have at the running back position. They just lost 2 running backs off their roster that might not be there for the Notre Dame game. One gentleman was kicked off the team, and the other running back was suspended due to things that happened in a dorm on campus. So, like you said, facing against Wisconsin, who loves to run the ball, they just lost some depth at the running back position. So that changes the dynamic of that game in week 4. And we didn't even mention the matchup with Jeff Braun and Purdue in week 3. Purdue is always that team for Notre Dame going back to the early 90s. It's just a tricky game, man. The flukiest things happen. The craziest things happen. You think that it's going to be a 20-point win for Notre Dame on paper. Yeah. And somehow, some way, you look up in the third quarter and it's a dog fight. Yeah. And that's the game for me that I'm concerned with because I love Jeff Brom as a coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. So I don't think Notre Dame will lose the game, but I just think it's going to be a dogfight. It just always
100%.
ends up being something totally different than you expect.
Those Purdue and Pittsburgh games are always, no matter what they look like, they're going to be a tough game for us. And it doesn't matter if we got Will Fuller or Jalen Smith, it's still going to be a tough game due to the fact that I just think the culture of those teams, even in Michigan State when we used to play them a lot, the culture of those hard-nosed physical teams that they just going to stick around. They know they're not going to win, but they're going to make it really, 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 really hard on you. And for us, it's about execution and consistency. And I think we'll be built for it. It's hard to ever, like you said, it's hard to ever bet against us when we play those teams because it's no-brainer when you're looking at the roster. It's like, oh, this is easy. But you watch the game and they'll get a stop here, they get a turnover, they'll get a crazy explosive play, and we're like, all right, let's wake up, and it comes down to those last two possessions of the fourth quarter where we seal the deal or close it out. So it just goes back to what makes Notre Dame so great when you watch us every season is that we're going to give you those games that give you heart attacks, but we usually pull it out at the end.
That is the dope thing about being a Notre Dame fan. You get the diversity of not only the matchups, the traditional games, facing USC, even the Navy game. Navy is down this year. They might not be as tough.
Oh, no, they're usually pretty good. Navy is usually good against us. It don't matter what they're
well coached. They're well coached, and they're going to play hard, especially against Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's right.
For me, that's the game where I'm like, dude, I know we're going to win. I just want to be healthy at the end of this game. That's it.
Man. And as I hope we get the ball enough. When you play a team like Navy, it sucks to watch because those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4s is a first down automatically. There's just nothing you can really do to stop it because they're just gonna run that guy right in the middle. He's in the Army and Navy, so they to the last second, the last whistle all the time. So they're gonna drive a little extra, fall forward. And it just extends drives and make the game not only boring, but it's challenging because you got to be very technical and precise. And they don't give up. The Army boys may be smaller, but they'll fight you like they're 6'9".
All right, so I'm going to counter what you said about the quarterback position being the one position that could close the gap. I'm going to counter that.
Okay. What we got?
I think it's the lockdown corner. That's what it is for me.
We ain't never had one of those.
I need that lockdown corner at Notre Dame, that Deion Sanders type. I need it.
I like Kyle Hamilton in that position. I think he may not be specific corner, but Kyle Hamilton can hold down that secondary for us in a big way. But you're right. We haven't had a staple type of corner in a while. I don't even remember the last one we've had. In that, I mean, Julian Love was great.
I don't know if Julian was like your prototypical lockdown corner. He was great off the ball, very instinctive.
We don't have a guy that can shut off half the field just yet. That can just say we're not getting completions on this end. Wow. But that would be. I agree. That's a game changer for us, though, because in terms of what beat us against Clemson in the playoffs. I mean, it was night and day. It's like the receivers done found new legs against our DBs or something because some of those touchdowns we were nowhere to be found, And I think having that 5-star corner with Marcus Freeman would definitely change the game.
Yo, Bobby, we have to go all the way back to like Bobby Taylor and dude.
That's never been our forte for some reason.
I mean, when Lou Holtz first got there was a run.
You got
Todd Light, then you went to Bobby Taylor, and then you went to Tom Carter.
Yeah, Tom Carter. But
they were all first-round draft picks and lockdown corners at Notre Dame. But after that, the pickings were real slim.
It just hasn't been important to us, it feels like. I mean.
Well, from the reports, Cam Hart could be that dude. One thing Florida State does have is speed at the wide receiver position. So we'll find out about Cam Hart and the rest of the DBs game 1 on Sunday night. Kyle Hamilton is just Mr. Everything.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Everything. I don't know. I forget the play. They ran play action, Alabama in the semifinals. They ran play action away from the field, and then they tried to throw back to the field, and Kyle almost picked it.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, they just stuck with the short game. They didn't challenge Kyle anymore that game because I think they were like, oh, okay, they do have somebody that's on our level.
Yeah, they got somebody that's back there.
Yeah. They kind of shied away from that. So you're right. He's the difference maker. Houston Griffith coming back, that'll be huge.
Yeah, I think I just think the scheme, I think our front seven has been so efficient from a stopping the run, pressuring the quarterback enough to where our DBs have really just been playing the safety net for our team the last couple of years. So I would really love to see what Marcus Freeman can do with these safeties, playing them in the box, getting them more involved just to allow Kyle to be the playmaker first rounder that he is. It's very similar to how we churn out those top tier talents like your Jeremiah Owusu's, your Jalen Smiths, Kyle Hamilton's following right along with that. Just freaky athleticism, but that's what's been holding us down for getting us through those tough games where we're going to be playing North Carolina this year. That's my game that I'm a little worried about just due to the magnitude of their quarterback and what he's able to do. So I think the challenges present themselves, but Coach Kelly's got the right pieces in place to stand up to them.
You know what? Let's go today because I don't know, man. I don't know who I'm worried about on this schedule. Like, I'm not totally confident, but I'm looking and I'm like, North Carolina, of course, they have a Heisman candidate at quarterback, but they're trying to replace 4,300 yards of offense that went to the league.
Yeah, 2 running backs.
From 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. Yeah. So, that's a lot to replace. I know Mac has done a great job of recruiting and getting that program, back to where they were before he left and went to Texas. But Sam Howell really doesn't. We handled him last year, and I think Marcus Freeman will kind of take that blueprint and do the same thing this year.
Yeah, the one thing Sam. Go ahead.
You know who scares me? I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell you who scares me because of the way he played the last time he was in Notre Dame Stadium.
Who was that?
Keaton Slovis. When he was a freshman, he played very well in that game. Yeah, Notre Dame jumped out to a big lead, and you thought that freshman would wilt. And I think he brought USC back to within a touchdown before Notre Dame put the game away. And that shows me his toughness. USC is always going to have talent, at the skill positions and speed at the skill positions. So I think that's a game where we're going to have to put up points.
It's whoever our California game is. It's just been unlucky for us. Whether it's been dating back to 2014, anytime we went out to California, that late trip has always been kind of a disaster for us at the wrong time.
You get USC at home this year, and then that last trip, that game you talk about is Stanford. Right around the holiday. So, and Stanford has found a way to upset them. They found a way. Even when they weren't that good, they found a way.
Upset a lot of seasons.
Upset a lot of seasons for Notre Dame. You're right. So the game for you. So you're comfortable with that Wisconsin-Cincinnati, week 4 and 5. That's a tough matchup.
It's the juju that we have having a coach over there and having the other team's quarterback. I think that just mentally gives us an advantage where I feel better about going into it. And Cincinnati's playing at our place. So, it'll be good to see what Coach Denbrock, if they still got him over there at offense coordinator, see what he does versus Coach Kelly and Marcus Freeman. He was just with them. So I know that the scheme they're going to know a little bit more of, but the difference is now we got better players running the scheme. So Desmond Ridder, I think he's good for what he's been able to put together, but I think it'll present a challenge for him that at Notre Dame, it'll be a little different for him. If it was at Cincinnati, he might have a little bit more success, but we got his defensive coordinator, so I know if anybody knows Desmond Ridder, it's Marcus Freeman is their defensive coordinator. So I feel good about the Cincinnati game, and then I just know that in that Wisconsin game, Jack's going to be fired up. I mean, he should be. I felt a little bit fired up when I had the opportunity to possibly go to North Carolina the year we were going to play Notre Dame, and just having that playing your old team kind of spirit. I know what that will feel like. So I know he's going to go in there guns blazing and hopefully have a better turnout with it.
Well, Marcus Freeman wants this front seven to make more plays. He said that when he first got here. That means getting into the backfield, more tackles for loss, more sacks. We've been used to having good edge rushers, but I expect the linebackers to be more involved when it comes to putting pressure on the quarterback or Marcus Freeman. We'll see this, because he wants his DBs to be able to play man-to-man.
Oh, shoot. That's been our kryptonite. We had a tall order right there for us to be playing man.
When he was at Cincinnati, not only was he able to identify those type of guys that can play man-to-man, he was able to recruit them to Cincinnati. And you start to see what he's been able to do for the 2022 recruiting class. The DBs he's getting, he's going to get those 4 and 5 stars. He's identified them that can come in, and hopefully in the next 2 years, we'll start to see the fruition of that on the field, where we have DBs that might end up being first-round picks. But as of this year, as we said before, Cam Hart is that guy that we're going to lean on. We hope Tariq Bracy can return to his form of his freshman year. And the front seven is going to be beefy. The front seven is going to be deep.
I love our front seven. I love the length we have. I love some of the experience we got. Yeah. Our linebacking core is flies around. That's one thing that popped out to me, is that those guys fly around, especially in the playoffs. Even though we wasn't necessarily bringing the guy down, the linebackers were there. You know, and with another year of experience, I just think they're going to fit so well into the system, and especially with Marcus Freeman being more aggressive. Hopefully we get more sacks. That's one of the two kryptonites of our defense, is that we have been great at man and getting producing a good amount of sacks to change the game for us. We're good at stopping people, getting people off the field, but being a turnover defense is something that I think the fans will be excited to see. We can get picks and sacks and turnovers defensively, because I know offensively we've been able to stall a couple years and putting up a limited amount of points. So hopefully we can score more on the defense end as well.
Yeah, losing Maris Lufau at the linebacker position is a huge loss. Tough. Kid was a playmaker. J.D. Pertran is probably going to replace him in the starting lineup. Like he said, he wants to play all 6, 7 linebackers he has. So even though they lost Lufau, it wasn't like he was going to be out there for 70, 80 snaps.
Yeah, that's 20 plays right there.
Right. So they should bowl well. All right. Let's go ahead and get your prediction, man, for the season. What are you looking at as far as wins?
Oh, man, I got us. Was it 12-game season, right?
12-game season.
I got us at 9-3 modestly. I don't think we'll make the playoffs, so I gotta find enough losses in that schedule to suffice. I think there's a lot of good teams this year that are better than last year, that may have taken a step over. It's like Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma has taken a step over this year. I think LSU will be good next year, just because their defense, a lot of defensive guys coming back. But I'll give us 3 losses. I'm not quite sure which 3, because I think one will be a surprise. I think Virginia Tech will be a tough game for us, because we're playing at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
And then that stretch we're playing that Tar Heels and Cincinnati and all that, I think we'll lose 1 in there. And then that California trip, I just think no matter how good we are, that California trip at the end of the season just is an unlucky trip for us somehow.
Yeah, you're right. That Virginia Tech game is sandwiched in between Cincinnati, USC, and North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very dangerous game on the road. Every time you hear Sandman playing and the crowd is going crazy, it's a tough place to play. It's going to be physical for 4 quarters. So, yeah, that's a tough game. I'm going to go ahead and hang my hat on 10-2. But I feel like the swing game is the North Carolina game.
Yeah.
If we can make it through the North Carolina game with 1 loss, I believe Notre Dame goes 11-1. If they get through North Carolina and they only have 1 loss, I think they go 11-1. I don't
Do you think we're talented enough to get through the whole season like that? Now that's not no eat. Now 9 wins, 10 wins, I got it. 11 wins saying you go into the playoffs again.
But this is the thing. We didn't have a home crowd last year.
We didn't.
Fans come back to the stadium. The tough games, Wisconsin is a home game. Yeah. I know on the schedule they say it's a road game. It says Soldier Field. That's a home
30
game.
minutes down the street. That's a home game.
That's a home game for Notre Dame. USC, that's a home game. North Carolina, that's a home game. So like you said, one of these road games, like Purdue or like Virginia Tech, those could be the games where you say, all right, this is where they might slip up.
This is where the bump in the road comes.
Absolutely. Cincinnati is a home game.
The home game. When we play smaller teams like that, I'm not worried about that. When we play them at home. It's when we play those teams away I don't really like it.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and say the North Carolina game is the swing game. If they can overcome Sam Howell and Mac Brown, and at that point they will be 6-1?
Yeah.
No, they will be 7-1 at that point. I think they run the table because they have Navy, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and then that Stanford game. Stanford game.
Now Georgia Tech is going to be better too. Georgia Tech has a better quarterback this year with Jeff Sims that I think will be better than last year, and it's something that Georgia Tech has probably never had or hadn't had in a long time with the ability at their quarterback position like they do now because he can throw as well. So
yeah.
They got some talent over at Georgia Tech I wouldn't sleep on. It'll be interesting to see how they get to November and that October, late November, late October, early November, teams kind of falter. The teams that be unranked and don't help us when we trying to add up our points, get into the playoffs. So hopefully those teams can sustain and get to us and still be good.
Yeah, man. If they go 11-1 with this schedule and all the uncertainty, as Marlo Stansfield would say, the price of the brick just went up. The price of the brick just went up.
But that means we in playoff contention. Are we messing with playoff teams this year?
Man, with 4 top 15 teams on the schedule.
But are we handling? Let's say we get in. We get 11-1. The committee likes us. We got the good standing with the committee. And we're going to play the usual suspects.
Do you want to get in, though?
Chance?
Do you really
have a better chance this year? I don't think I don't know.
See, this is
every season comes down to is that.
Yeah, I would rather reboot this season. Go 10-2, go to a New Year's Bowl, win that bowl game, and then take the momentum of this season and a recruiting class, which is a top 5 recruiting class right now.
Beating Bama in the recruiting class right now.
Right. And then come back next season like, okay, let's go.
But but 11-1, we're there. We're playing a Clemson Bama at the end of the season for sure. We know they're going back.
You're on the verge. Because see, the SEC is real tricky this year. You have Bama in week 3 going to Florida. And they could mess around. They could mess around and play Florida in the championship game. So if the loser of the week 3 game wins the championship game, they both end up in the playoffs.
Oh my God! So,
right? Yeah. It's crazy. So 11-1 with this schedule, most times should get you into the college football playoff. But this year is going to be really tough. And based upon last year, you already know the bias is going to be there. Like we've seen Notre Dame,
We would deserve it though. 11-1, we would deserve it.
They would
I feel
definitely
like
deserve
those
it
teams
with
will
this
be
schedule.
good.
Yeah.
But then we get there. I don't know if we'll make it look any different than the year before, just because it's just the circumstances, you know. Like, I think we'll give a better fight, but I just can't see Jack Cohn holding the trophy up after beating Clemson, Alabama. Not that he couldn't do it, but I just, I can see, I just,
can't visualize it. Right.
Because he would have to play. Because think about it, Ian would have had to throw at least 10 touchdowns in those 2 playoff games, 5 apiece to beat Clemson or Alabama.
But this goes back to your point. He would have had to pull off. He would have had to have pulled off a Deshaun Watson.
2 of the greatest. It would have to be beyond his best game. Yes. He won 30 games, but it would have to be way better than those 30 games he won. And that's just a lot to ask for back-to-back games. It's one to do it one time, but then you got to play Alabama the next week or Clemson or Ohio State the next week. It just gets tough.
All right, when we come back on the Lucky Lefty podcast, we'll get into the rest of the college football landscape, talk about the usual suspects and our dark horse teams, and I'm going to ask Malik who would have been his sponsor if the NIL had existed during his time at Notre Dame. We'll be right back. Lucky Lefty podcast.
You're listening to the Lucky Lefty podcast with Malik Zaire.
Never will there ever be another like me. You can play the left because it ain't no right in me.
And Shaun Davis.
Welcome back. It's the Lucky Lefty podcast with myself, Shaun Davis, and the greatest lefty of all, Malik Zaire, Notre Dame's own former Notre Dame quarterback. We are here. We just talked about and previewed the Notre Dame football season, and now we're about to get into the college football landscape nationwide. It's the usual suspect when it comes to the rankings. You have Alabama, you have Oklahoma, you have Clemson, you have some dark horses in there like Iowa State, Cincinnati. But for the most part, Notre Dame comes in at number 9. But for the most part, it is the usual suspects. I want to talk to you about college football, the landscape changing in a lot of ways, and we'll get to that shortly. But how does Clemson and Alabama continue to be at the head of the class?
Well, it really comes down to the common denominator, and that's their head coaches. The head coaches have been there 10 plus years apiece. There's no other coaches like them. And it's something about the way their program is set up based off of it. Well, for Dabo is a player's kind of set up where Deshaun Watson took his career to the next level.
Right.
On Saban's side, the ultimate coach, the traditional coach, his program is second to none in the way he runs it and how he's able to keep that strong grip on just the control and have his hand in everything, more Belichick-like. Dabo's the ultimate player coach, so there's only 2 types of coaches, the traditional coach, and then you got your players type of coach, and the spots are both filled. So there's no secret as to why they're both there consistently every year. And it's been, 10 years plus for both of them. And until somebody takes one of those 2 spots, it's going to be hard to beat them out each and every year.
If you look at the top 10, the one thing you see is great coaching. You look at the head coaches and all of those teams that are in the top 10, and you say to yourself, that's a darn good coach. And I see why the sexy dark horse pick for a lot of people is Iowa State, because Matt Campbell has pretty much been rumored for every top job the last 3 seasons based upon what he's established there with the Cyclones. But is there anybody else outside of Cincinnati and Iowa State, maybe in the range of 11 to 20, that you think, okay, this is the team to watch? Like, we know you have Oklahoma, you have Spencer Rattler, you have Lincoln Riley, you have all the knowns with the top 4 or 5 teams, but there's a team around number 13, 14, 15 that if you don't watch out, they might end up in the college football playoffs.
Man, it's so hard to tell, man. I think because a lot of those teams that have great seasons, when you look at making the playoffs, it almost fits a certain requirement. Is your coach top 5?
Right.
Do you got a top 5 quarterback?
Bingo.
Do you got players that are entertaining that aren't main positions? Do you have a all-star corner, or do you have a superstar DN? There's so many different requirements that you got to feel. It almost feels like that even those teams that have those Coastal Carolina seasons where they're going undefeated, it just in terms of making the playoffs, are you going to be competitive against those teams that are there every year? It's just a battle of recruiting, and it's hard to see on paper too many teams compete when it comes down to it. I think Oklahoma is the closest to it because of the quarterback situation. I think Spencer is, in my opinion, the number 1 guy for the Heisman. I think he gives his team the best chance to be competitive against those Clemsons and Alabamas because he can survive the whole game. And so I like what Iowa State is doing. Brock Purdy, I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He's out of Arizona too. I know Spencer knows him pretty well. But it's Brock. I put Brock in the same category as Jack. They're great quarterbacks for the team and probably can rattle off a lot of wins, but can you see him holding the trophy up over Alabama or Clemson?
Yeah.
That's what the question is.
Well, we'll find out about – I said that range was like what, 11 to 15?
15, yeah.
So Oregon is 11, Wisconsin is 12, and Florida is 13. Now, I stopped right there because Miami's 14, and they play Alabama game 1. So
they'll drop. They'll drop and they'll come back up towards the 15 at the end of the year. Yeah.
Hey, De'Aaron King got his image and likeness money. Yo,
he's going to be making a lot more business decisions.
Right. But I'm very interested because Oregon has, in my opinion, Ryan Day. Once again, you said if you're a top 5 team, top 5 coach, quarterback. C.J. Stroud, not a lot of game experience. But he's coached up by Ryan Day. More than likely, if you follow the trend, he's going to be pretty good.
Man,
we don't know.
Me and you can both play right now and be really good for Ohio State.
Oh, man. Facts. Facts. So Oregon comes to town. That's going to be a great matchup when Oregon comes to Columbus and they invade the Horseshoe. Oregon has a really good team. They return a lot of talent. Thibodeau is a game wrecker on defense.
He is.
So
that's Anthony Brown. I do like Anthony Brown at Oregon, the quarterback, the Boston College transfer.
Boston College. Yeah.
I think it'll be a good matchup. But the thing about Ohio State and when they played, even when you look back when they played Mariota for the championship, the thing that made the difference was them wearing on them towards the end. I mean, Ohio State is probably going to be way bigger than Oregon.
Yeah.
Oregon's going to have fast, skilled guys, but so is Ohio State. The style of offense for Oregon, they'll get some stuff off, but Ohio State don't really change their defense. They're going to run that quarters, and they're going to lock up on the outside, and they're going to play that run. And so it's going to be a long day if you just want to be one-dimensional versus Ohio State.
And now those freshmen and sophomores on the back end for Ohio State are now sophomores and juniors. So that defensive backfield is even tougher this year if you go into Columbus. We talked about Wisconsin. They have the big matchup. They play Penn State game 1 out the door, which is a tough matchup. And then they end up at Soldier Field to face Notre Dame, which is another tough matchup. Wisconsin usually plays well in the Big Ten. They had a tough season last year. COVID hit them. Graham Mertz, who came on the scene, throwing 5 touchdowns against Illinois in his first start as a starter. We'll see what he has. We'll see if he can take the next step. He unseated Jack Cohn. And like you said, that's going to be a revenge game when he faces off against Notre Dame and faces off against Jack Cohn. Can Wisconsin be a team that comes out of the Big Ten and surprises Ohio State? Not really. But this is the team I really like. Okay, this is the team I like.
I really like Wisconsin. Oh, or you got a different team other than Wisconsin.
I have a different team. I really like what I see offensively from Dan Mullen.
Yep, at Florida, yeah.
Jones may not be the same anticipatory quarterback that he had last year, but he's more explosive, and his feet will be a problem for Alabama when they come to the Swamp week 3 for that first SEC game. That to me is the opportunity for Florida to jump on Alabama before they really hit their stride.
Yeah.
And then run the table in the SEC East and solidify themselves a CFP position, because if they have to face Alabama again in the championship game, even if they lose, they're in. Because we beat you already.
Yeah.
So
that's the ultimate golden ticket. You beat Alabama in the middle of the season.
Absolutely.
Right.
So Dan Mullen, if they can get Bama in that game in the Swamp, they could be a team that could immediately jump up. Because if they beat Bama, they'll jump from 13 into the top 5.
Oh, for sure. And I really like. And I really like. I mean, I was fortunate enough and unfortunate at the same time to be on staffs like Notre Dame when we had that 4-8 season 2016.
Yeah.
And to see how they bounced back the season after, and then to be on Florida in 2017 when we were 4-8, and then Dan Mullen come in and change the whole program around. It just shows that they got one of the big recipes that you need to win, and that's a great college football coach. I think Dan Mullen is the perfect fit for the type of guys they recruit, in terms of making sure the guys they recruit are impactful in the offense. I mean, they were putting up 40 points last season with Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask and the running backs like Malik Davis and all the guys that they have over there. And then what I really like, too, is that their defense and their defensive backs with Jason Marshall, I think is going to be a name to remember, going into this season. A lot of hype around him, but it's well-deserved. He'll have a great job of locking up some of those talented Alabama receivers that they're reloading with. But they got a kid from IMG, Christian something. He'll be number 7 out there. But Jason Marshall's the guy on defense for Florida that will be really good. And just I know that they're going to have something up for Alabama like they did last year. I mean, I thought their game plan was good. It just, didn't finish the job. But,
didn't have enough bullets in that gun to keep up with Alabama.
They did, but they played really well on offense. And I think it's just attributed to Dan Mullen knowing how to get the best out of his players. So that's definitely a matchup to wait for. But if they can pull it off and then finish against Georgia, because they got to play Georgia in that big game, they're going to write their ticket to the playoffs indefinitely. Yeah,
and I think this is – I want to get your thoughts, because OU and Texas moved to the SEC, right? They lead the Big 12. They moved to the SEC. Emotionally, how much tougher does that make the season for Oklahoma going through that Big 12 schedule, where they know not only are they going to get the best from everybody, but those road games are probably going to be crazy raucous. Like, you add that extra emotion.
I think the impact will be a lot like how Kansas State is usually to Oklahoma, where there are going to be a lot of games like how they play Kansas State every year in the SEC. Yeah. So Tennessee is going to look like a Kansas State to them. Vanderbilt's going to look like a Kansas State to them, due to the fact that the recruiting and the style of offenses that they run down there are going to put a lot of pressure on those skinny guys in Oklahoma. They got a lot of flashy, like the rappers of the college football world, the famous players that always go to Oklahoma. Now they're going to have to get some gritty guys. And I think that's going to help with their recruiting transferring over to the SEC, is that now they can get some Alabama-type guys up front that can make the back end and those skill positions look better. I think they needed to do that if they ever wanted a chance to compete for the playoffs, because they're just not going to get the right recruiting out of that area of the world when they're getting out competed by the SEC recruiting.
All right, now let's go ahead and talk about new legislation in college football. The NIL rule, the name, image, and likeness rule that was passed out in California and started the domino effect. We knew it was coming. It was years coming down the line. And, oh, man, way overdue.
Yeah.
Way overdue. My question to you before we get into its impact on college football, and with Notre Dame still being an independent, are they in position to really take advantage of this new legislation being an independent rather than being connected to a conference? But before we get to that, what would Malik Zaire have? You do. Bryce Young hasn't taken a snap and is already $3 million in the bank. The Ohio State quarterback that has not even showed up on campus yet. He's in this year's.
Ewers.
Yes, he signed a deal just for his autographs in the millions. So when Malik was there, what spot, when he's in South Bend, what spot in South Bend would have been on his mind first to say, yep, give me a deal with them?
Oh, man, wherever Coach Kelly get his cars from, that's probably the first one I'm taking to stop over.
That's been the first one?
Be the first one. I gotta get around campus, gotta get around school. Coach Kelly got to hook me up, man. I'm the QB. Holla at your boy. I'm pretty sure Bryce Young got a couple of hookups from Coach Saban connections.
Yeah.
Just because Coach Saban came in third in the governor's race and didn't even run. So, he got his hand in, a little bit of everything in Alabama, the economy itself. So for Notre Dame, the plugs are all over, man. I think any quarterback in that position needs to find a way to take advantage of it. But at the same time, so many college football players, it's not like everybody's going to get a deal.
Right.
Not everybody's going to get a Doritos sponsorship or a Chevrolet sponsorship. But if you're in those right positions, like Quinn Ewers at Ohio State, Bryce Young at Alabama, you'll have a lot of attention your way, but rightfully so. I think the biggest difference that the NIL added was just the availability to actually make money if it was presented. It's not presented to everybody, but the ones that it was presented to, it just became a burden because you had to jump through so many hoops to get around the legality of everything. But now, those same superstars like Kayvon Thibodeau, he can take advantage of what is already presented in front of them. Now, a lot of guys got to go out and reach for different sponsorships, but the guys that are making all these millions right now, guys that already had that, they just made it up front in the newspaper.
You know what? You're right. And I think what we saw from the legislation, once you saw Texas and Oklahoma bolt the Big 12, you start to see all of these presidents at these schools say, you know what? Hey, if the cat's out the bag, then we can stop acting like it's about.
Stop acting.
We can stop acting. And it's about the money now. So
stop acting. It's always been about the money. We ain't got to hide it. We ain't got to hide it. These student athlete is so important to us.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yes, man. Forget the Big 12. We're going to get this SEC bag.
And everybody can kiss my butt on tradition. We got to go win games and make some more money.
Right. That's it. That's what it's all about. So now everybody can just kind of, drop all the facades and just say, it is what it is. College football is always about generating revenue.
And turn into club. It should just be just like the European club teams, school. They ain't thinking that about school over there where they playing soccer. But it's not taboo either. It's like, well, you 6-year-old superstar, keep playing soccer till it's over. They don't even talk about school afterwards, So treat it like club, let those players get paid, but also it gives the players responsibility that you can get fired too. I think that had changed a lot of the behavior. Like I feel like if they was getting paid at Wisconsin, their running backs wouldn't be making choices like that. And they probably would try to stay all 4 years if they're not a first round guy. They get their education, they can provide for their family, they can make some money while literally doing a job at college the whole time. It's an honest way of of saying, all right, we'll take our foot off your neck, college football players, and let y'all get a little bit of money. So good thing the rules aren't too defined yet to where they're going to find that loophole in there where they're like, but wait, we have more.
Right.
I think this is a good opportunity for those guys to get that money up. And, I mean, let's keep it honest. We'll see how those kids react to making all that money. Will it make them better as a player, or will it just set them short for getting into the league? I think, if anything, it prepares these kids to be able to manage their money, getting ready for making that bigger money when they get to the NFL. And hopefully we'll have a lot less guys go broke at 26,
I'll applaud Jack Swarbrick because he got out ahead of this. And pretty much you saw the campaign that Notre Dame started where they started putting their players on billboards all over the nation, for advertising and for marketing purposes. And when kids see that, they see Notre Dame as an independent where they don't have to share revenue with the other schools. And if you come here, like, you are the shining beacon, in college football because we are Notre Dame. That's an opportunity that a lot of kids look at and say, man, I can go there, and if I'm a superstar, yeah, that bag can be real.
And hopefully it changes the landscape of college football from a recruiting standpoint. It's no longer, we give you $50,000, you slide over to Alabama, you slide over to Ohio State or whatever. But the NIL and the potential of some of these kids, maybe a kid that actually likes staying home and goes to Fresno State, that can still make some big money. And he may not win a championship, but he's taken care of. He can still go to the league.
Right.
And it can even out some of the playing field. Like, I was even, I called a couple of games for San Jose State. They sit right in the middle of Silicon Valley. So just imagine the type of advantages that players can take, especially good players, can take by raising that San Jose State program, by being benefited by the technology companies around the school. I mean, if you look at how some of this has been going, I mean, if you can even out the recruitment, maybe it'll make college football more entertaining as well. And it can just help everybody in general instead of just being the bottleneck of what it is right now, and that, 50,000 going to the best player, and you only got 3 options. You go to Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama. What type of weather you like?
Right.
What type of weather you like? So now, for Notre Dame, it's the golden apple.
Yeah.
We should ever miss recruiting now with an NIL. You see what Kyle Hamilton's doing with it. This is the first year. So let's say Tyler Buckner, explodes on the scene, and who knows? And he's Asian, so he probably got all type of different, connectivity. Nobody's ever seen an Asian quarterback on this level, at Notre Dame, on a level where you compete for championships on.
I think the most Chang when he was at Hawaii.
Oh yeah. I mean, it can get real crazy, and I think it's good because the stranglehold and the complaints and of what we've been talking about, the same thing for years and years, it's just kind of getting old. Yeah. So the players with a little bit of power in their hands, it'll look good for college football for sure.
I totally agree. Let's get to the big games this week. Let's go ahead. This is our pick 6, week 1. Now let's start out. UGA, UGA against the Clemson Tigers. It's JT Daniels, who we faced off against when he was at USC, and of course DJ Uiagalelei, the performance he put up, 400 yards he put up on Notre Dame last year in that double overtime loss. This comes down because both defenses are stout. I don't think anybody runs the ball in this game. I think Georgia will be more committed to the run because that's what they do. But it comes down to the quarterbacks.
It does.
Yeah.
I got Georgia, honestly. I think Georgia has gotten the right things together with Kirby Smart. They got JT Daniels, who's in that position now confidently. He's very talented. I think if he didn't get hurt at USC, we wouldn't be talking about Slovic. We'd still be talking about JT. But He gets a chance to go down there and get his feet under him in his second year at starting the helm. He's healthy. And then just Clemson, I think they don't know their superstars outside of DJ just yet.
Right.
I think Georgia's got it figured out. They just need to be healthy. Both defenses are going to do what they do. But like you said, the quarterback position is going to make the difference. George Pickens, I got him in my Heisman top. I think he's Devontae Smith good, and he's going to make a big showing on that first game. So I got George Pickens going to pick him up, pick up them TDs.
It's still a game time decision. Pickens injured his knee back in March, so he's coming back from that. We still don't know if he's going to play the first game. But if he plays in game one, that's a heck of a recovery.
That's my guy.
ACL in March. But he is the game changer
for
Georgia. He's the game changer. This second game, we're talking about it because of the marquee of the names. But we already know. Alabama takes on Miami. Bryce Young, he is the big name on the marquee for this matchup. Come on, man.
Miami just doesn't have enough.
And I like Zaire King a lot.
I like him too.
I like him a lot, man. But my heart goes out to him this week because I look, Miami's talented, but I just don't think they understand the relentlessness that they're about to face on both sides of the ball.
If Kyler Murray couldn't do more against Alabama's defense, I'm not liking Zaire King's shot.
No.
And Kyler Murray is Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
He was even looking a little.
And that was Kyler Murray with CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. So if we looking at that as a model of what Miami can do, I don't think it'll look good.
And I'll give you a little tip in that UGA Clemson game. Clemson's win total, if you're a betting man, is 11.5. That could be over for you. If they lose, I don't know if that's a safe bet. I'm not betting the over right there. I don't think it'd be a safe bet either. I'll take that. And then Alabama's minus 18.5. Look here. Lay big money on Bama, okay? 18.5 is nowhere near enough. No, it's nowhere near enough. LSU. LSU has been displaced, of course, due to Hurricane Ida, and our prayers go down to everyone in that area of the country. And I think they're still without electricity, so hopefully that area can get back to some sense of normalcy. They've been displaced, but they face UCLA this week. UCLA looked okay. The run game, they got the transfer Charbonnet from Michigan. He was dominant against Hawaii last week. But that run game is not going to operate the same going up against that LSU defense.
UCLA is a very good, cute team to be 8-4, maybe 6-6 if they're not careful. And you just think of toughness, the scale of toughness for teams like that. They lay in the middle. They can fold or put up a good fight, but more likely fold. And when it gets later in the season, they get worse. So I like Dorian at quarterback. I think Dorian Walker is Walker's last name.
Walker Robinson. He struggled a little bit against Hawaii.
I think he's got some talent, but it's just, we talking about serious football now when you're coming down to playing LSU with Derek Stingley and that defensive front. So I think they started off good with Hawaii, but they're gonna have a tough battle against LSU.
Your receivers won't be as open as they were against Hawaii, my friend. That is DB. That is the school for defensive backs, cornerbacks, and safeties when you go to face LSU. So
and you might be running for your life, depending on who they got back there, linebackers. So
over under at 47. I'm going to take the under. I think it's going to be tough to score. That's just a tip. Penn State against Wisconsin.
I think Wisconsin, just for me, I'm a big fan of Coach Chris. I think he's a top 5 quarterback. Top 5 head coach in college football. I wanted to play for him. I didn't end up taking it, but very smart guy. I just think he's going to have that team ready to play Penn State. I think Penn State's a front-running team, They got a lot of good talent, but for some reason I think Northwestern has surpassed them in the Big Ten, when it comes to the teams that are ranking under Ohio State. I think Northwestern has made a bigger and better push than what Penn State should be. I mean, they had Saquon and wasn't looking good against Ohio State that year they played. So a lot of question marks over at Penn State, but I like the consistency from Wisconsin to pull it out.
Yeah, I was always pulling for Coach Franklin to be able to reestablish things at Penn State and be successful. It's been a struggle. Of course, last year, I really don't blame anybody during that COVID season, truncated schedule. Everything was crazy. The Big Ten started later than everybody else. So Penn State and Wisconsin both kind of struggled. But I think, like I said, Graham Mertz is the guy. They have the better quarterback. The running game, the offensive line is going to be good, even though they won't be as veteran-led as usual. But I still look for Wisconsin, who's getting 5.5. I look for them to cover, and I look for them to win this game straight up. So, yeah, I'm with you right there. Iowa against Indiana. This is the return of Michael Penix Jr.
I think Indiana got this one. I'm a big fan of Indiana. Indiana's got one of those Indiana-type teams that can upset an Ohio State this year due to the fact that they got a solid enough quarterback this year. Yeah. They've always had some players. Now, they've always had like a Cody Lattimore or, a Shane Wynn, just a guy or two that'll just be like, oh, he stands out, and they'll start hot one drive and get a couple things going. And I really like that quarterback in Indiana. I like what he was doing last year. They'll deserve a lot more respect in the Big Ten this year, and I think they'll start off with a win against Iowa.
All right, your team that could jump up and bite Notre Dame. They have a chance to jump up and bite Sam Howell. Week 1, it is North Carolina against Virginia Tech.
I think Sam Howell is ranked high enough in the getting drafted to where he's got to win this game. I think this is a game where everybody is expecting him to win, and he needs to perform well to keep that spot of where he's projected for the draft. And I think he knows that. Coach Mack knows that. And so they're going to do everything they can to put him on display. So I got them winning. It'll be tough, but it'll be a good game for him to start off the season right with a victory.
All right. That's our pick 6. We'll give you each and every week, we'll give you a little bit of background and help you out with your picks right here on the Lucky Lefty podcast. Before we go, each and every week, we're going to do something called Truth or Trash.
Truth or Trash.
Truth or Trash, man. We give you a statement, and we're going to tell you whether or not it's truth, or we're going to tell you whether or not it's trash as we head out. So we can't help but to start with what has been trending since last Sunday. That is the highly anticipated new release from Kanye West, titled after his own mom, Donda. Donda. Was it truth or trash?
Look, you can't hate on Kanye, man. It's the truth. I think just the hype around it and his creative ability and the things that no other artist can pull off. Everything he puts out at age 40 plus has got to be a classic, because who's relevant at 40 still other than Kanye?
Yeah. He is. Look, Malik, I looked at this. My expectations for Donda weren't as high as most people. Being from Chicago and like being tied into early Kanye, I know the Kanye that I would love to hear, but I understand that producers and artists evolve. And then I know that my opinion doesn't move the needle anymore. Yeah. Right? Like, I have a daughter in college. It's her opinion that moves the needle.
Yeah, so it's really a whole different ear that's listening.
It's really what her and her friends believe about this album that would dictate, what it is and whether or not it's considered a classic. But it exceeded my expectations. And
yeah, if you can appreciate somebody that can even be relevant in your child's era, and to her have an opinion on something that we thought was hot 10, 15 years ago. So exactly. It's like, man, it's credit.
That's crazy.
A lot of credit.
The two songs that stood out for me were Off the Grid and Hurricane with The Weeknd. Those two songs for me were on repeat all week.
And I think I like what I like so much about Kanye is that his lyrics just feel like he's just talking. It's not really like he's trying to rap to you. He really just saying something that probably happened to him the other day, but you can connect to it because it's like, man, that's relatable, but it's just Kanye. It's like, how you doing, man?
Yeah, so we get to talk about we get to talk about Loverboy next week on the next podcast.
Another heavy hitter. I love Drake.
Another heavy hitter. So the Texas and Oklahoma moved to the SEC. True for trash?
It's trash because they have to. You know, if they want any more TV attention, any more better recruits and a chance to win a championship, they have to. It wasn't going to get it done. It's just trash that they got to do it that way.
Yeah, I think it's truth when it comes to being in the boardroom or being on the boards at both of those institutions. It's like, this is the right decision.
It's the right decision.
And from a revenue standpoint,
we're going to make that.
We have to make this happen. So that's the truth. But like you said, the impact it's had on college football and how things may play out and the way it was done, it was trash, man.
They might get rid of, I'm telling you, the way recruiting going, they might end up getting rid of divisions because who's even interesting to watch anymore if it's not Texas or Oklahoma in that division? I'm not excited to turn on my TV for Iowa State. I'm excited to see them upset an Oklahoma or a Texas or, you know, so.
Yeah, and I think they need to pay both of those teams, Texas and Oklahoma, they need to pay some type of dividend on an annual basis to Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M because they led the way. They led the way and proved that it could happen, that you can come from Texas in that area and compete and build a program, and now Texas A&M is a top 10 team annually. So, yeah, give them about 3%. Give Jimbo his 3%.
Give him his 3%. I know he still wants that credit. I know he still – they might be good this year too, so – yeah, they got a solid quarterback over there. I'm liking it, so we'll see.
That just like Florida, they get Alabama at home.
Yeah.
So,
we'll see what they can turn out. Do they have some Johnny Manziel magic left?
Yeah, man. Return of NCAA football. Now, see, this is my issue, and then I'll let you rock out with this. When it returns, are they going to put all the teams that didn't get a chance to be on the game? That means the lad from like 13 all like, dude, I need to play. It's cool. I'm gonna rock with Notre Dame anyway. But I didn't get a chance to play and run behind McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson, bro.
Oh man.
I didn't get a chance to put Lucky Lefty at my quarterback.
Oh man. I do remember the first year I got to school was the last year they had it come out. So I did make the cut.
You made the cut. Right.
But, I mean, now it's like so much greatness has happened in college football that to update it now and to miss all of that just happened, it's like, man, you got to put some upgrades on there to where we can add our own favorite year of a team or something because that'll just take so much of the generation that wanted it away, you know, you wanted it so much while you was there. So we'll see what happens.
Now, one thing that EA Sports has done is that they have allowed some of the greatest teams in the era that has been missed to be included on Madden 22.
Oh, okay. Well, well, that's the
case this week. So I don't know what teams are going to show up. I assume it's going to be like Deshaun Watson's Clemson team.
Gotta be.
You know, teams like that.
Maybe us. I think we had a good little run in there where we were competitive enough to be considered.
Yeah. That would be great. And it's kind of like a tease that you get to play with those teams.
That's right.
Against other college teams. And hopefully we see it when it comes out. Man. How would you because you know they usually do the normal equipment. What would you change? Like if they had just normal equipment for you, would you rock the sun visor? Would you add like extra wristbands?
I'm always a towel in the back, and I love the one band on my arm. You know, just the one unnecessary sweatband. I don't think any of the shit works, if we're being honest, because when the adrenaline's kicking in the game, you sweating, and it don't matter because you wet anyway.
Yeah.
I just think from a swag perspective, you know, these kids, I think Odell done messed up, you know, football. I think he just messed it up from a what it looks like, it's just gotten too crazy, man. Like half of it is just it's like, y'all, I spend more time on that than in the playbook, so I'm kind of over it.
I just wondered, will it be more impactful for guys like me and you, or will it have the same impact for the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds of today that it had for us when we were teenagers?
Maybe it's the younger kids. I think just more kids are getting impressionable earlier. I feel like, even high school football isn't even the same when I played high school football from how the kids treat it. So I think it's trending in a good direction, but it's definitely a direction where, who knows where the ceiling on it or what's next is going to land.
All right. Well, that's this week's edition of the Lucky Lefty podcast. We will be up on iTunes. We'll also have postings on our YouTube page. That's at Lucky Lefty Pod. At Lucky Lefty Pod.
The double L, baby. The double L.
How we do it. That's right. Our words spin different. Your lefty spins a little bit different.
Gets the brain a little different, man.
So, from the original Lefty, Malik Zaire, I am Shaun Davis. We'll see you next week, week 2, and much more on the Lucky Lefty podcast.
Subscribe, baby. Subscribe.